Good morning. I would like to call the Niagara Police Services Board meeting to order for July 27th, 2023. My name is Jen Lawson, and I am the Chair of the Niagara Police Services Board. We begin the meeting this morning by acknowledging that the Niagara region is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Haudenosaunee, the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The Regional Municipality of Niagara Police Services Board stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. We'll do roll call. Member Kiokio.
Present.
Member Yip.
Present.
Member Kapasavanu.
Present.
Member Steele.
Here.
And Vice Chair Eek and Member McKendrick has sent their regrets. Do any board members have any declarations of conflict of interest or pecuniary interest? Seeing none. If I can have members Kiokio and members Yip move that the minutes of the public board meeting held on Thursday, June 22nd, 2023 be, that the minutes of the public board held June 22nd, 2023 be adopted as circulated. Are there any corrections? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Seeing none, that's carried. Reports from the board chair. So on behalf of the board, I would like to welcome David Tilley to the meeting this morning. David is with the Inspectorate of Policing at the Ministry of the Solicitor General, and he serves as the Policing Services Advisor to Zone 4 police boards in Ontario. He regularly attends our meetings as part of the routine visits by policing services advisors to the police boards across the province. The board is pleased to see his continued attendance at our monthly meetings. The Canadian Association of Police Governance hosts monthly webinars as part of their educational strategy to keep police boards and police executives across Canada apprised of issues currently affecting the policing community. A webinar was held on July 18th entitled Challenges of Recruiting Police Officers, Crisis or Opportunity. An upcoming webinar is scheduled for August 3rd at noon for discussions on police well-being and governance. Board members are pre-registered, and for those who cannot attend at the specific date and time, a recording of the session will follow once the webinar is completed. The NRPS hosted a use of force training session for all board members and staff on July 18th. The session included a unique hands-on training opportunity to experience use of force situations in a controlled environment, as well as classroom and practical exercises. The session provided a good overview of the training that NRPS officers experience throughout their policing career, as well as insight into challenges experienced during routine tours of duty. The Canadian Association of Police Governance held its annual general meeting virtually on July 19th, during which the CAPG elected its board of directors for the 2023 to 2025 term, appointed its auditor, public accountant for the 2024 fiscal year, and named this year's recipient of the CAPG Board Award of Excellence in Police Governance. Executive Director Reid and I attended the meeting. The Canadian Association of Police Governance is hosting its 2023 conference from August 16th to the 18th in St. John's, Newfoundland. The theme of this year's conference is Governance Talking, Conversation Streams, and Deep Dives. Delegates will engage in panel discussions, workshops, and roundtables with a focus on new ideas and problem solving around key issues facing policing today. Members Kiokio, Kapasavanu, Steele, and the board's executive director and I will be attending the conference. On September 6th, the board and service will be hosting the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police and the Ontario Association of Police Services Boards Zone 4 meeting from 8 a.m. till noon in the community room at police headquarters. Zone 4 consists of a total of 14 police services boards, including municipal and OPP contract boards or First Nations police governance boards that are all located within the regions and counties of Brant, Haldimand, Halton, Hamilton, Niagara, Norfolk, and Oxford. These quarterly engagements allow boards within a certain geographic area to meet for the purpose of discussing matters related to police governance. All board members are encouraged to attend and are asked to confirm their attendance with board staff. On September 7th at 7 p.m., the Niagara Regional Police Service will be holding a swearing-in ceremony to welcome 5 currently serving police officers and 10 new recruit members of the Niagara Regional Police Service. The ceremony will be held in the community room at police headquarters, and all board members are encouraged to attend and asked to confirm their attendance with board staff. On September 8th, from 1:30 to 4:30, the board is hosting an information session for the Niagara Regional's chair and members of Regional Council at police headquarters in the community room. The session will provide a detailed overview of the Police Services Board and Niagara Regional Police Service and provide an opportunity to learn how the PSB and the NRPS plan to meet the provincial mandate of adequate and effective policing through discussions on Niagara's police programs and services, police operations, administration and management of the service, and fiscal stewardship of regional funding. There will also be an opportunity for participants to ask questions, provide feedback, and share concerns or ideas from their communities. Police representation at the event will include the board, chief, deputy chiefs, district commanders, members of the NRPS executive and senior leadership team. The board looks forward to this important session with regional councillors. On September 14th, I will be joining the members of the service at Beyond the Blue Champions of Change Awards Gala held in Toronto. The gala is to acknowledge and celebrate police services members and community partners who are championing the advancement of mental health and well-being initiatives within their respective police services. In keeping with the meeting schedule, practices for regional council, local area municipalities and agencies, board and commissions, as well as other police services boards, there are no board or committee meetings scheduled during the month of August. The board's next committee date is Thursday, September 14th, and the next board meeting will be held Thursday, September 28th. Meetings are held in the community room at police headquarters and begin at 9:30. And that concludes my report. Members, are there any questions? No. Chief, do you have a report?
Good morning, Chair. Yes, I do have a report. Good morning, board members. Just wanted to provide some information with regards to an upcoming event that is going to be hosted on the Global Television True Crime Series involving a high-profile murder investigation that's going to be highlighted on the show, and includes an incident that happened in Niagara. I'll provide some background and you'll understand. Really horrific event, a series of events, and you'll understand now why it's being highlighted on the series. The accused, Alexander Bates, who's 47 years of age, was a motorcycle enthusiast, as was one of the victims in this matter, Alberto Araujo. These two men knew each other for many years and were considered close friends. In 2012, Araujo suffered a near fatal motorcycle accident and was hospitalized for a lengthy period. Bates offered to help his friend, including offering to watch out for his 12-year-old daughter. Thereafter, over a period of several years, Bates engaged in a series of sexual acts with the daughter before the girl's parents discovered the relationship. In February 2015, Bates was arrested and charged with several sexual offenses related to the relationship that he had with the daughter. He was released on bail. In August 2015, Araujo and his wife, Megan Scher, discovered tracking devices had been affixed to their vehicles. An analysis of fingerprint impressions located on the tracking device determined that it was Bates who had affixed the device. In September 2015, Bates was charged with a criminal harassment. In January 2016, he pled guilty to criminal harassment and sexual interference, and he was sentenced to 3 years in custody. Bates harbored significant resentment towards Araujo and Scher, feeling they were responsible for his arrest and conviction. When Araujo and Scher found out that Bates was being released on parole in February of 2018, they feared for their safety and moved from their home in Mississauga to Smithville in secrecy, only giving their address to close family. On December 21st, 2018, Bates attended their home in Smithville and forced Araujo into the basement with what was later learned to be a replica handgun. When Cher attended the home with her mother, they too were forced into the basement by Bates. Cher was able to escape and she called 911. Bates violently assaulted Arujo and Cher's mother with a baseball bat before attempting to escape, but he was intercepted by our responding officers. Bates pointed the replica handgun toward the officers and was shot during the interaction with our officers. The Niagara Regional Police Service charged Bates with 2 counts of attempted murder, possession of a weapon for a dangerous purpose, and uttering threats in relation to this incident. On the same day, Arujo's mother, Maria Arujo, was found deceased at her home in Mississauga. The Peel Police investigation into her death revealed that on the previous day, December 20th, 2018, Bates attended her house to uncover the family's whereabouts. Bates violently murdered Maria Arujo and disturbed the scene to create the impression that the home had been broken into and ransacked. Peel Regional Police charged Bates with second-degree murder in relation to this incident. In July of 2019, Bates pled guilty to 2 counts of attempt murder in relation to our charges here in Niagara, and he was sentenced to 13 years in custody. And in October of 2022, Bates pled guilty to second-degree murder in relation to the Peel charges, and he was sentenced to life imprisonment. So I'm not sure of the date when that's going to be aired, but I can pass that along when we learn of that. Just some information with regards to our 2023 homicide and attempt homicide statistics. I'm happy to report that during the reporting period of June 19th to July 16th, we did not have any homicides or attempt homicides. Currently this year, we have 5 homicides. Comparatively, in 2022, we had 10, 6 in 2021, 5 in 2020, and 7 in 2019. With regards to our traffic fatalities and serious motor vehicle collisions, there were 2 fatal motor vehicle collisions and 1 life-threatening motor vehicle collision that occurred during the month of June. To date, to date, we have 11 traffic fatalities up until June 30th. For all of 2022, we had 18. 2021, we had 21. And 2020, we had 16 fatalities. And in each of 2018 and 2019, we had 13 traffic fatalities. Just some information on those incidents. First one on June 10th, 2023 at approximately 11:40 a.m. 2 district officers were called to a single vehicle collision in the area of Lakeshore Road near Old Lakeshore Road in Niagara-on-the-Lake. The officers located a single vehicle that had struck a tree. Niagara EMS paramedics were on scene providing treatment to the 49-year-old female driver who was the sole occupant of the vehicle. She was transported to a local hospital where she was unfortunately pronounced deceased, and her identity has not been released. Collision reconstruction detectives continue to investigate that collision. On Friday, June 16th at approximately 7:45 a.m., 1 district officers responded to the area of 3rd Street, Louth and 5th Avenue, Louth and St. Catharines for a report of a serious motor vehicle collision. Officers arrived with Niagara EMS paramedics, located an 86-year-old female passenger of the older model sedan with vital signs absent. St. Catharines female was later pronounced at the scene. 81-year-old male driver, also from St. Catharines, was extricated from the vehicle by St. Catharines Fire Service before being transported to hospital for treatment of non-life-threatening injuries. Investigation revealed that the sedan was stopped and then entered the path of an oncoming pickup truck that was towing a trailer. No one else was injured as a result of the collision, and that also remains under investigation by our collision reconstruction unit. On on Thursday, June 15th at approximately 2:07 a.m. Two district officers responded to a single vehicle collision in the area of Willoughby Drive near Weaver Road in Niagara Falls. Officers located a single vehicle that had struck a deer, ran off the road, and then collided with a driveway culvert. Niagara EMS paramedics were on scene treating the 27-year-old male driver, who was the only occupant of the vehicle. The male was transported to an out-of-town trauma center for treatment of life-threatening injuries, and he remains in hospital. And that again remains under investigation by our collision reconstruction unit. Some other items in the news. In April 2023, our one district street crime unit detectives commenced an investigation into the distribution of illegal drugs that was occurring throughout the city of St. Catharines. As a result, two suspects were arrested. One loaded handgun was seized, and a total of $149,820 worth of illicit drugs were recovered. On June 26th, detectives observed a suspect in the area of Niagara Street and Church Street in St. Catharines. They arrested the suspect, and a subsequent search revealed that he was in possession of 365 grams of suspected cocaine, 90 grams of suspected methamphetamine, and 68 grams of suspected fentanyl. 26-year-old male from Scarborough was charged with 3 counts of narcotic trafficking offenses, and the accused was held in custody pending a bail hearing on June 27th when he was remanded in custody. And on June 28th, detectives observed a second suspect in a white SUV in the area of Lake Street and Carlton Street in St. Catharines. Detectives arrested the suspect, and the vehicle was seized pending a search warrant. In total, detectives recovered a loaded 9mm handgun, 10 rounds of ammunition, over 530 grams of suspected cocaine, 70 grams of suspected fentanyl. In addition, detectives recovered approximately $1,000 in currency believed to be the proceeds of crime, and a 32-year-old male from Scarborough was charged with numerous firearms offenses, drug trafficking, and proceeds of crime offenses. And he was held for a bail hearing on June 29th, at which time he was also remanded into custody. In June of 2023, two district street crime detectives commenced an investigation into the illegal distribution of drugs throughout the city of Niagara Falls. On July 10th, with the assistance of the Emergency Task Unit, detectives executed search warrants inside a hotel room at the Falls View Boulevard, at a residence on Drummond Road near Monroe Street, and on a 2018 Hyundai SUV that was being operated by one of the suspects. In total, detectives recovered over 230 grams of suspected fentanyl, 47 grams of suspected cocaine, and 307 grams of cannabis, 1 smoke grenade, which is classified as an explosive, and 1 canister of pepper spray, which is classified as a prohibited weapon. Combined estimated value of the street drugs is just over $20,000. And detectives also seized just over $42,000 in Canadian currency, which again is believed to be the proceeds of crime. As a result of the investigation, 2 suspects were arrested. 28-year-old female from Niagara Falls was charged with possession of fentanyl for trafficking, unauthorized possession of a prohibited or restricted weapon, unlawful possession of explosives, and failed to comply with the release order. And a 29-year-old male of no fixed address was charged with possession of cannabis for trafficking, possession of fentanyl for trafficking, possession of cocaine for trafficking, possession of proceeds of crime over $5,000, and failed to comply with the release order. Both accused were held in custody for a bail hearing, which occurred on July the 11th, at which time they were both remanded into custody. And in April 2023, two districts street crime detectives commenced an investigation, another investigation into the illegal distribution of drugs in the city of Niagara Falls. On July 12th, detectives executed a search warrant inside a trailer located on a residential property on Thoroldstone Road near Kaler Road in Niagara Falls. In total, detectives recovered 24.3 grams of suspected carfentanil, which is a much stronger derivative of fentanyl, and 2.7 grams of suspected crystal methamphetamine. Also seized was a replica rifle, a replica pistol, and $280 in currency, which was believed to be the proceeds of crime. As a result of that investigation, two suspects were arrested. 45-year-old male from Niagara Falls was charged with possession of a firearm, weapon, or ammunition contrary to a prohibition order, possession of crystal methamphetamine for the purpose of trafficking, possessions of proceeds of crime under $5,000, possession of fentanyl for the purpose of trafficking, failed to comply with a probation order, and failed to comply with a release order. A 49-year-old female of Niagara Falls has been charged with possession of crystal methamphetamine for the purpose of trafficking, possession of fentanyl for trafficking, and proceeds of crime under $5,000. Both accused were held in custody on a bail hearing that was held on July 13th. Male was remanded in custody and the female was released on an undertaking. Just some information with regards to some arrests that occurred in relation to commercial break and enters. Two district street crime detectives have been investigating a series of linked commercial break and enters in Niagara Falls and Niagara-on-the-Lake. On July 5th, several businesses in the town of Niagara-on-the-Lake fell victim to smash and grab style break and enters. On July 14th and 15th, more businesses in Niagara Falls were also targeted by the same suspects, resulting in the loss of thousands of dollars in merchandise and damage to the property. The investigation led to the identification of two suspects, a female and her son from London. The suspects were arrested on July 22nd. 19-year-old son was charged with break, enter, and commit theft, 9 counts, and theft from automobile under $5,000, possession of stolen property under $5,000, and mischief under $5,000. The 43-year-old mother was charged with break and enter, commit theft, and possession of stolen property under $5,000. Both accused were held in custody for a bail hearing on July 23rd, at which time they were both remanded into custody. And that concludes my report this morning, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Members, any questions? If I can ask at this time, Chief, if you wouldn't mind introducing the presenters of the presentation we have.
Yes, absolutely. I'm very proud to introduce Detective Constable Jordan Meffe and Detective Constable Jeremy DeFranco, who are both with our opioid education and enforcement unit. And they're going to provide the board with an overview of the work that they've been doing. Very difficult work, I might add, with regards to investigations related to deaths that have been occurring as a result of opioid overdoses here in Niagara region. So without any further ado, I'll turn it over to Detective Jordan Meffe.
Thank you, Chief. Good morning. As the chief mentioned, my name is Detective Jordan Meffe. I'm with Niagara Regional Police Service. This is Opioid Enforcement and Education Unit. And presently, I'm with my partner here today, Detective Constable Jeremy DeFranco. It's an honor to be asked here to speak today with regards to addressing the board of the work that we've been doing. So thank you. To give a brief history about our unit, otherwise known as the OEEU, the unit was founded in 2017 as part of the province's Community Safety and Policing Grant. It's a 3-year cycle for funding, comprises of 2 detective constables under the umbrella of Special Investigative Services. In terms of its inception, the mandate was to reduce the availability of harmful opioids within our community and to provide education regarding opioid misuse. To break down our educational component of what our unit does, we consistently provide education to our frontline officers, investigators, and partnering agencies regarding drug trafficking related investigations. We also monitor and assess various trends related to our opioid epidemic. Currently, we are part of 3 working groups in our community, that being the OPEN group, which is the Overdose Prevention Education Network of Niagara, as well as the Niagara Health Systems Program Advisory Committee. And most recently, we've been asked to be a part of the Community Addiction Services of Niagara. We frequently liaise with public health regarding our findings in our investigations. And last year, we took part in a joint initiative with public health, which was the prescription drop-off day of 2022. So at the end of our funding cycle in 2021, Jeremy and I wanted to assess the landscape of how opioids and addiction were affecting our community. So we dug into the stats. In 2019, we determined that there was 93 confirmed opioid-related deaths. The following year, in 2020, there was a 60% increase with approximately 150 opioid-related deaths in Niagara. And the following year, 2021, there was 165 confirmed opioid-related deaths, showing an increase over these years. So how did Niagara compare to that of our province? According to statistics, unfortunately, our opioid-related deaths were approximately double the provincial average. A breakdown, according to this 2021 map of where these overdoses were specifically taking place, were mostly in densely populated areas. 50% took place in the city of St. Catharines, followed by 25% in Niagara Falls, and the remaining municipalities, the rest. In doing this and in digging up some research of what was happening in our landscape, provincially and elsewhere, we determined that there was a new victim-centric model that was occurring across Canada, that being that police services were conducting criminal investigations in terms of assessing the causal relationship between the drug trafficking events and overdose-related deaths. We can all appreciate that victims, of course, are the people that are using and passing, but also the families that they leave behind. The families lost a loved one, whether that be a spouse, a sibling, a child. And oftentimes these family members have lots of information to share with police. So in identifying how this was being done in Niagara, we believe there was a blind spot related to overdose-related death investigations, and that being related to the drug trafficking component of overdose-related deaths. There was an opportunity to gather missing intelligence that was not otherwise being gathered in terms of identifying the persons responsible for selling the toxic drugs in our community. And what we found was families were left generally unsupported by police and were left with a lot of unanswered questions of what happened to their loved one leading up to their passing. So in January of 2022, the OEEU took a new approach to this opioid-related death investigations to address, of course, this profound community issue. So our new objectives. So other drug units with Niagara Regional Police Service continue in their mandate to reduce the availability of harmful substances within our region. Our objectives within the OEU from 2017 shifted. So our new objectives align with the principles of the Ontario Police Services Act. And we understand that, given the complexities of this profound issue, we can't handcuff our way out of the situation. But our number one objective is to provide truth to a grieving family in relation to the chronology of events leading up to their loved one's passing. And number two, where possible, hold the drug trafficker accountable, whatever that offense may be, whether that's the offense of trafficking, manslaughter, and or criminal negligence causing death. And have the opportunity to have these families better supported by police. We frequently provide information related to services in our community, such as Victim Services of Niagara and CASN Services, Community Addiction Services of Niagara, who provide grief counseling to those families that that just had a tragic loss. So during this time period, as overdoses were increasing, we conducted separate but parallel investigations to the CIB officers and frontline officers that attended the scene, keeping in mind Section 5, Sub 1 of the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act. That being that no person shall traffic in a substance, Schedule 1 through 4, or any substance represented or held out to be by a person to be such. So what we do is we consult with families, we liaise with the officers on scene, forensic services unit, and the district detectives. It doesn't necessarily change our approach to our initial response to overdoses. So divisional detectives and uniform officers will attend the scene, they'll gather evidence, complete a canvass, and essentially identify the circumstances related to the death of the person. What we do is continue following up with the family, conduct more comprehensive interviews relating to the drug trafficking event, gather a history of the timelines, and of course, manage family expectations. These are very difficult cases. They take lots of time, and just so the family can better familiarize themselves with the process of how our investigation would take place. As well, we would identify the substance that may or may not be left on scene, drug paraphernalia, and send that off for analysis. We would attempt to identify the source of this drugs and where they came from. And in doing so in this investigation, we would often liaise with the coroner's office, the pathologist, the toxicologist, and Health Canada. So in determining the exact cause of death, we would attempt to identify continuity between the drug trafficking events through to the consumption and the death. We would attempt to establish a relationship between the drug trafficker and the deceased. Was this exploitive? Was there monetary gain that was made? Was there a profit off the death? Is this in public interest? And there would be a thorough Crown consultation with evaluating our investigations and whether they would proceed with charges. And of course, as mentioned in our objectives, we provide answers to a grieving family and provide them with services in our community during their tragic loss of their loved one. To give an overview of 2022 in our cases to date, we've laid 5 sets of serious criminal charges relation to overdose related deaths. And these charges include trafficking, criminal negligence causing death, and or manslaughter. So if we take a breakdown of what 2022 looked like for us, there was 115 confirmed opioid related deaths. Of those 115, we did a further review of 51 cases. Of the 51, we did a comprehensive investigation into 15. And of the 15, we laid charges in 3 of these cases within that year. To have a further breakdown analysis of what our investigation looks like in terms of resources, the average length of investigation was approximately 6 months. As previously mentioned, these are not quick investigations. They take a lot of time. There's lots of data and evidence to filter through and assess. The average amount of officers involved were 22. Now, some of these officers had varying levels of involvement, whether this is minimal to very involved. The average units involved were 9. So this may already include this already includes the platoons that attend these scenes, the CIB officers that respond, the forensic services that are there. Our unit, of course, possible surveillance units to assist us throughout our investigation, and so forth. Average number of arrests in each of our cases were approximately 2. Number of charges, 5. The average number of interviews that were conducted with these were 16. And in conducting our investigation, we often write a number of warrants, whether that's a warrant or production orders. So there were 6 authorizations that were on average that were conducted. And in terms of our outside agencies that were also involved to assist with our investigation, we frequently liaise with the coroner's office, the pathologist's office, the Center of Forensic Sciences, our provincial crown attorney's office, Victim Services of Niagara, and CASN services, so that they can continue following up with the family through this process. So the view of the courts. So the view of the courts in these cases gives the family the opportunity to have their voices heard in the loss of their loved one in the tragic circumstances. So in 2 specific cases, in the case of R versus Sochka, where Mr. Sochka pled guilty in the death of Ethan Hannison for the offense of criminal negligence causing death and trafficking, Justice Calderwood stated the following during sentencing. Opioids, particularly fentanyl, are ravaging our society and destroying lives and families, and, as often said, is a scourge on our society. The scope of the problem, the pain and the loss caused by it directly and through its ripple effects remains alarming and constitutes a public health crisis. Its unbearable impact is tragically all too clear in the case before me today. And the second, the R versus Sutton, who pled guilty to fail to provide necessaries of life, which in the death of Gary Splotnick, Justice Robinson stated the following during sentencing. It is trite to say, you have got to hit rock bottom before you realize what you need to do to fix things, and you do not get much more bottom than this. A substantial penitentiary sentence on the drugs and being responsible for the death of one of your friends. Families' thoughts. So in 2 of these cases, we were given permission by the families to provide their thoughts in relation to these types of investigations. The first one is Marnie and Ted Hannison, who lost their son Easton. Ted and I are so appreciative of our police department has invested in a task force that can help the community and families with what Judge Calderwood deemed as a national health crisis. The amount of work and dedication and funds it takes to even put a dent in this epidemic must be overwhelming on the staff and services of a police force. However, making it a priority has given us closure as a family that so many other families do not receive. And Linda and Gary Splotnick, who lost their son Gary Jr. Thank you for your perseverance when bringing us closure on the death of our son Gary. We appreciate your empathy as we took this journey together. Fentanyl kills. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Detective Constable Mayfie and DeFranco. I have a question for you. I'll ask my question first. So it sounds like there's a significant contribution and collaboration required between the units. You mentioned that there's an average of 22 officers, average of 9 units. And then during the chief's report, we also heard that a number of charges and arrests being laid against non-residents, such as in Scarborough. Are you finding that the cases that you have been investigating recently are related to those types of events?
So specifically for the ones we've investigated, no, it doesn't exclude substances trickling down from Scarborough, which I think we can certainly speculate probably did.
Thank you. Thank you. Great presentation. Board members, any comments or questions? No, if I could have members sorry, Pat, member Kyokyo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, great presentation, great program. Just listening to your presentation, the family members, are they all cooperative because I know they're grieving over a lost one and to then all of a sudden get into it again. Are they all cooperative?
So
I guess the question.
I'll give you an idea. in that 2022 year, we did 91 interviews and I think there was only 9 refusals.
So
So,
we have an
yeah.
overwhelming amount of cooperation from families. I mean, this, of course, isn't a typical drug-related investigation. This is something where someone died. So the cooperation we have is actually pretty remarkable.
That's excellent. I think the families see it as a part of their grieving process is to not let someone else go through the same things
absolutely,
that happen to them. So,
absolutely.
yeah, good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Board members, any other questions? No, seeing none. If I could have members Kapasavanu and members Steele move and second that the presentation be received. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. Moving on to consent agenda. If I can move items 8.1 to 8.21 in block. I can have members Yip and members Kapasavanu move that the information be received. Board members, are there any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? That is carried. Moving on to 9.1, the capital budget and the 9-year capital forecast for the budget year 2024. If I can have members Steele and Kyokyo move that, subject to approval by the Regional Council of the Consolidated Capital Budget, the board approved the 2024 police service capital budget and forecasts as follow. One, that the 2024 capital budget of the Niagara Regional Police Service of $7,898,662 as summarized in Appendix 1 be approved. Number 2, that financing in the amount of $7,898,662 be initiated upon the approval of the 2024 capital budget and be allocated to the projects as summarized in Appendix 1. And number 3, that the 9-year capital forecast be received as a guideline for the development of the future capital budgets. Members, any questions? All those in favor? Oh, sorry, Chief. Oh, sorry, Chief, you have a presentation. Just eager.
Thank you, Chair. If we can just get the presentation loaded up and I'll walk you through our 2024 capital budget and forecast. All right, thank you, Chair Lawson, board members and staff members and members of the community for the opportunity to present our proposed 2024 capital budget and 9-year forecast, and for allowing us to provide some context surrounding our capital needs as we continue to ensure that we're positioned as a police service to move forward to best serve and protect our community. The capital budget process focuses on developing a long-term asset management strategy, not only to replace existing assets, but also to align our capital needs with the service's vision, essentially focusing on the here and now, while also being alive and planning in a fiscally responsible manner for the future. It's important to stress that this annual process gives us an opportunity to review our previous forecasts for future capital needs against the continually changing horizon and expectations of policing. This process began in March of this year when program managers reviewed their inventory to identify assets that are at or nearing end of life and scheduled for replacement. In addition to asset replacement, program managers, along with their executive leads, consider assets that are necessary to support and execute strategic initiatives as outlined in the board's 2022 to 2025 strategic plan. This year, 26 projects were submitted for consideration, totaling $9.2 million. All projects were evaluated using the region's capital asset management resource assessment tool, otherwise known as CAMRA, which critically evaluates the asset based on a standardized set of criteria. The fundamental aspect of the CAMRA tool considers the asset's current condition, probability of failure and its risk to primary operations in the event of failure. The camera tool has been used region-wide to assess the condition of assets slated for replacement through a common scoring matrix. The service committed to follow a similar process during our capital asset review. In addition to the camera tool, the executive leadership team considered other factors, and these factors included operational needs, alignment to the board's strategic plan for the new capital project, asset projects, and the likely impact on risk or liability along with public and member safety. The projects were analyzed for the services executive leadership team and deputies at great length until the final list of 21 were identified as a priority for 2024 at a total cost of $7,898,662. The final total has increased by approximately 1.75 million from our 2023 capital budget forecast for the 2024 year of 6.1 million. The main reason for the increase is related to the addition of the enterprise storage system of $2.5 million, which has been identified for replacement. The pie chart on the left of the slide breaks down the total capital projects by assets to replace and new assets related to service improvements. As the chart illustrates for this year, approximately 90% of our projects fall within the asset replacement category, while 10% is for new capital projects related to service improvements. The pie chart on the right illustrates the funding sources used to finance the 2024 projects. 53% is from the police capital and vehicle reserve funds, while the remaining 47% is funded from two of the region's reserve funds, the capital reserve and the development charges fund. As mentioned, we went through a lengthy evaluation process to reduce the capital projects submitted to this final list, which exceeds funds available from our capital reserve by $3.8 million. It became apparent that we would need to seek alternative funding sources to finance all the projects. And after consultation with the region, they agreed to provide the funds to enable us to bring forward all 21 projects. As previously noted, 90% of the capital request represent assets in need of replacement. The assets summarized in this chart were identified as items that had scored highest with respect to risk of asset failure, deemed an essential asset to support operations, or identified as a goal in the board's strategic plan. At the top of the list are the annual replacement costs associated with our two largest pool of assets, vehicles and IT and network infrastructure. For vehicles, the capital request is $2.2 million funded from our vehicle reserve fund. The vehicle replacement program takes into consideration the age of the vehicle, odometer readings, overall condition, and intended projected applications of the asset to ensure overall safety and effective guardianship of the asset. By virtue of their duties, patrol vehicles operate in harsh conditions, often 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. As an emergency service, vehicle reliability and availability are crucial factors and must be ensured through appropriate vehicle replacement. For IT and network infrastructure, the capital request is $825,000 funded from our capital reserve fund. This represents the annual provision in our capital budget for IT and network lifecycle equipment replacement and upgrades to support continuity of service. Additionally, we're requesting $2.5 million from the region's capital levy to support the replacement of our enterprise storage system. The P25 public radio safety voice radio system provides radio communication capabilities to over 2,000 users in the region, including the Niagara Regional Police Service, Canada Border Services Agency, Niagara Parks Police, as well as 7 fire services. The P25 system was completed in 2016 and as such has components at the end of their useful life. The current year replacement requirements include 16 microwave units and 8 UPS batteries, which will be funded through our capital levy as year one of a 3-year replacement plan to replace 510 portable radios, which is being requested from the region's capital levy. The remaining assets to replace include the dive truck components, night vision devices, mobile radar units, radio headsets, intoxilizer instruments, safety helmets, and biomedical refrigerator/freezer. These items were slated for replacement as they've reached the end of their useful life. The 2024 capital budget also includes the continued financing of the previously approved 2022 capital project, which was a 5-year plan to migrate the service CEWs or tasers to the new Taser 7 platform. 3 capital projects have been included for the purchase of new assets, as noted in the table using N. Am I on the right slide there? Yes, I am. Yeah, okay. Which includes an increase in the patrol vehicle pool, CCTV camera expansion, and mobile communications van. To meet increasing patrol pressure, the service will increase its patrol fleet by 5 vehicles over a 3-year period from 2023 to 2025 for a total fleet increase of 15 patrol vehicles. This capital project will be funded by the region's Development Reserve Fund. Development charges are a one-time fee collected from developers when applying for a building permit for a new development or redevelopment project. The Niagara region collects these fees to help pay for the capital cost of the infrastructure that's needed to service the newly developed or redeveloped project. Approximately 3 years ago, the authorized strength for frontline uniform officers was increased in 1, 2, and 3 districts. Despite the increased staffing, the number of marked patrol vehicles was not increased proportionately, which resulted in a shortage of vehicles on a regular basis. In addition, the creation of the core unit within these districts resulted in a further demand for patrol vehicles for these officers to perform their duties. The increase in marked patrol vehicles would maximize the addition of uniform officers and deployable dispatchable units on patrol, as well as providing core units access to patrol vehicles to allow them to fully perform their assigned duties. These added vehicles will require an increase to the operating budget by approximately $108,500 for the cost of fuel, minor vehicle supply costs, and preventive maintenance. This is a request to add 20 new CCTV cameras to expand our CCTV footprint within the community in what have been identified as high-risk zones. To supplement financing of these cameras, the service submitted a grant application to the Ministry of the Solicitor General under the Ontario Guns, Gangs, and Violence Reduction Strategy. The ministry funding is limited to a 1-year grant cycle from 2023 to 2024, and the grant will fund 50% of the associated costs and must be dispersed by March 31st, 2024, if approved. The current van utilized by the communications unit is used solely to transport personnel to the backup center in the event of an emergency resulting in the evacuation from our communications unit here at headquarters. This passenger van is at the end of its useful life and due for replacement. In addition, agreement with St. Catharines Fire Service to provide temporary backup 911 radio dispatch services during a planned or emergency evacuation is coming to an end. The service is currently negotiating a reciprocal MOU with Hamilton Police Service to provide the service for one another. Hamilton Police, however, will not be able to dispatch Niagara Regional Police units as they do not have the same computer-aided dispatch system. This project will allow for the purchase of a larger communications van, which will be large enough to transport 5 to 6 staff members to the backup center and will be outfitted with 2 workstations with the necessary equipment to perform dispatch functions while en route to our backup center until such time that the backup site is fully operational. This solution allows for the service to maintain radio dispatch continuity during a planned or emergency evacuation. It will mitigate risk and liability, ensuring there is no delay to our frontline officers being dispatched to all emergency situations during that transition period. This slide summarizes the total 2024 capital budget allocated to each funding source. $4,125,162 requested from the police capital and vehicle replacement levies includes 18 out of the 21 capital projects. 2 projects are being requested from the region's capital levy, including the enterprise storage system and the P25 portable radios, for a total of $3,273,500. And 1 project, the increase to fleet patrol vehicles, will be funded from the development charges levy for $500,000. The police reserves will contribute $4,025,000 of the funds required for the 2024 capital budget. These funds are made available through the contributions from the operating budget set aside to fund capital assets. The 2023 approved capital budget transfer was $3,705,000 and will be included in the 2024 base operating budget. Additionally, an increase of $320,000 will be included in the proposed 2024 operating budget. This increase is in line with the long-term capital funding strategy that was proposed in our 2022 budget presentation. The long-term capital funding strategy that would increase our operating budget capital contributions by $320,000 per year to reach $5.6 million by 2029. The strategy was aligned with the region's capital financing strategy to reduce our dependency on debt financing to finance asset replacement. The increased capital funding requirement takes into account the 9-year capital forecast and our expected future funding requirements for asset replacement. Included in the board report on Appendix 4 is a detailed listing of the proposed capital projects for the years 2025 to 2033, including planned facility upgrades that are forecasted in 2027. This concludes our overview of the 21 capital projects that are included in the $7.9 million capital budget request for 2024 and the 9-year forecast for future capital investments. At this time, I will turn it back to the chair to open the floor for any questions from the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. I'm happy to hear that we've worked with the region staff on our shortfall on this. Very quick calculations here from one of your initial slides. I see that vehicles, IT, and portable radios are really our biggest expense in the coming budget, with 35% of it being vehicles, 42% being IT, and 14% being the portable radios. Obviously makes sense with an increase in strength and having to replace vehicles, storage of data, and then our communications. So if I'm just to clarify and maybe Ms. Rouleau could just confirm that 91% of our budget that we're looking for is for really those three items or those buckets of items, and that we don't really have a lot of play in the other 9% for the few projects that we want to do.
Ask Mr. Rouleau to come up to the podium and she can answer that. Thanks.
Thank you.
So through to the chair, can you just repeat that question in reference to the slide?
It was really the slide that just talks about it has a presentation of the top 21 projects. So it's vehicle replacement patrol, vehicle replacement investigative, vehicle replacement specialty. Near the bottom of that, we talk about the mobile communication van, which kind of goes into vehicles, and then the communication equipment van. So I guess what I'm trying to say is when we report back to the public, when we take a look at our budget, our capital budget, a lot of the items that are on this capital budget and why it's so large, they happen to be very big and expensive items that we need to replace. And we didn't replace them in the past where we were increasing strength, but we didn't have necessarily vehicles for them at the time. We were either sharing or now they're at the end of life and things like that. So 91% of our budget of the 7.9 million basically is for those three buckets: the vehicles, the IT, and the portable radios. The few things that we see as far as like night vision devices, mobile radar units, should we be asked to cut them, it's not going to make much of a dent in our overall budget is what I'm asking.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct on that. The chief showed a slide where 90% of what we're asking for is really just to replace. And to your point, vehicles, IT, they make up probably about 50% of our overall total capital asset value. We have about 70 million in gross capital on the books as of December 31st, 2022. And about 50% of that is really vehicles and IT. So they are the largest, and therefore they would represent every year the largest amount of our replacement ask. And so we have seen this trend over the last few years where really the majority of what we're asking for is to replace our assets. There's not a lot really available for new assets for initiatives, but that's also an issue that the region is experiencing. And so once we have an opportunity to get caught up with the replacement of our existing assets, I think you'll see that percentage change. Hopefully, we will be more on top of a strategy for replacing existing, and then we'll have more funding available for new initiatives and new assets.
Thank you. Board members, any other questions? Member Kiokio?
Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. Just one question. I know there's a lot of vehicle replacements. What are done with the old vehicles? Is there any money generated with the old vehicles? I'm assuming we're taking them off the road as we're replacing them. Just curious to know if there's any monies that are being generated from that.
So through to the chair, yes, there is actually, we actually auction off our vehicles through a public auction. I forget what it is. I think it's an auction house that's been RFP'd. And any of the revenues from that are actually reported in our revenues within our operating budget. So we have about $100,000 budget for assets for sale, and the majority of those assets are our vehicles.
Okay, so that's not shown anywhere here. Okay.
No.
Just with the vehicle replacements there, so it is something that needs to be done. I remember working for the region as well. It's on every 10-year or a cycle that we replace all the vehicles. Are there any vehicles that maybe that we're mentioning here that this doesn't necessarily have to be taken off the road, that we could still continue to use and further keep some of the vehicles that we're using and not replace them this year? Does that make sense?
So through you to the chair, we have a replacement vehicle schedule that we follow. I guess the challenge that we experience is that particularly the frontline patrol vehicles operate on in a really harsh environment. They're operating 24/7, and so it's not just the kilometers that are on the vehicle. The engines are running primarily 24/7. Again, with the supply chain issues that are being experienced globally right now, vehicles are already being pushed beyond the scheduled replacement time period. So what would normally be, we order a vehicle and we receive it in a month or two, is sometimes taking up to a year to get those replacement vehicles once they're ordered, built, and then there's issues with microchips as well that are delaying us actually receiving the vehicles.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you.
Member Yip.
Thank you. I think I'm going to ask the question anyway, even though Member Kyokyo just asked it, and you can probably hear Councillor Encina's voice in your head as you're asking these questions. It comes up at regional council every single year about the vehicle replacement, right? And if the board and the police service are doing an appropriate job determining how the vehicles are replaced or when they're replaced. So what I was going to ask is sort of the process or rationale that you use for determining that a vehicle needs to be replaced.
So through you, Chair, we have a schedule, and again, depending on where the vehicle is utilized within the service, frontline vehicles have a set period. I don't have that schedule in front of me, unfortunately. I can certainly provide that to the board. They have a certain number of years before they're replaced. Vehicles that are used more in an administrative capacity have a longer time period and different kilometer ratings as well. So again, it depends on the functionality of the vehicle, what it's used for. Some other vehicles, like our dive vehicles, command posts and whatnot, they may have like a 15 to 20 year replacement schedule, as opposed to frontline vehicles, which might be 3 vehicles again, or 3 years, depending on usage.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Member Capasavanu.
My question is about the body cams, the body worn cameras. I noticed that it is there in the budget from 2023 to 25, and then it doesn't appear again at all. And there seems to be no replacement schedule for it. Is there a reason for that?
So we, through you, Chair, we have included in our long-term strategy body worn cameras. We currently do not have body worn cameras, so that's why there is not any replacement strategy for them. Once we obtain body worn cameras, I think one of the issues around body worn cameras is the efficacy of them, which I think is still to be determined in various jurisdictions as to how effective they are. They are a considerable cost to the organizations, not so much in terms of the cameras, but in terms of managing the mega amounts of data that come from those cameras. So there's additional human resources that are required to manage the cameras and the data once that decision is made to incorporate them into our asset management strategy.
Did you have any further questions?
No.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Member Steele.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Ms. Rollo have to come back up for this one. Thank you. Just with regards to development charges and the use of those, so that the especially the new members on the board, two of them are involved in this on a daily basis with the region. But with regards to how development charges are used, it comes into the region and then it's distributed to all the departments, the police board or police service being one of those. Seeing the amount in this year's capital budget of $500,000, is that just a number that was negotiated with the region, or is that truly reflective of growth within the region as we grow in population, we grow in housing, we grow in businesses? Obviously, the police service will have to grow as well. Is that indicative of our cost for that growth?
So through to the chair. So development charges are charged to developers when they are creating or building subdivisions. There's a fee that they will pay into to help with the infrastructure. That money goes into a reserve. It's a formula, and the police are part of that formula. So there is the assumption that with a new subdivision, there would be an increased cost policing. And so we participate in that formula. And then what happens is that money goes into a fund, a reserve fund, and that's held at the region. And so the development charges are open and available to any of the region departments and ABCs with respect to, and it's specifically restricted, and that you can only use those funds to help with growth.
Sure.
So, so not many of our capital projects are going to fall within that guideline, but with the vehicles, because the vehicles, the increase in our fleet was related to the increase in our police officers, then we were able to ask the region if we could fund our vehicle replacements of our 5 from that fund. So it's not necessarily, the 500,000 doesn't necessarily relate to the portion that is ours necessarily, but we do have an amount within there that we can tap into.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that unlike every other department within the region, that we are, quite frankly, getting our fair share on growth. It's no different than a municipality where a whole new subdivision comes in and the city has to buy another snowplow. That can be used for development charges. As we grow as a municipality, we may need to do another fire hall. That can come through development charges. So as long as that within our capital budget, that growth is related to the region growing and we're getting our fair share. I just want to make sure of that. It sounds like we are, which is a good thing. I just don't want this to be the board going to the region and staff going to the region with their hat in hand begging for this, where that's what development charges are for. This is exactly where they should be spent, as we need either more officers and more equipment, that's where the development charges should be applied to. So I just thank you for that explanation.
That is correct, yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, members. Any other questions? A good discussion. Thank you. So I had members Steele and, oh, sorry, Chief.
I just wanted to make a comment. I think this year more than any other year in the past, and we've always had great cooperation from staff at the region, but this year in particular, Todd Harrison and Helen Furtado were just excellent to work with. It was a very collaborative approach in reaching this budget that we're presenting to you today. And you know, I think with regards to development charges, if it fits within the criteria that's been established by the region, Todd and his team are more than willing and cooperative to assist us in offsetting any costs within our budget.
Thank you for that. I was, as a designated accountant, I was quite pleased actually to see the you could tell from the way the budget is presented that there had to be cooperation, obviously, with the region, and I was really pleased to see that. So if there's no further comments, I'll look around one more time. So I had members Steele and Kiokio move for the budget. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? That is carried. We've got the 2023 capital project closeout report. And if I can have members Capizavanu and members Steele move and second that the board approve the closure of the completed projects and the transfer of the funds to the Police Capital Reserve as detailed in the report, resulting in a net transfer to the Police Capital Levy of 43 million, or sorry, 40, not 43 million, that would have been great. $43,186.99. Any questions? All those in favor? That is carried. Items 9.3 to 9.6 are special fund requests. And before we consider these requests, I would like to remind members of the public that the special fund does not form part of the police operating budget, and it is separate from the regional tax base. The special fund is a discretionary pool of funds which is used for grants and donations. Disbursements from the fund are made in accordance with guidelines provided in the Police Services Act and with the Board Bylaw 376-2018, Special Fund Administration Limitations and Guidelines. So NRPS Special Fund requests Serving with Pride. If we can have members Kiokio and Yip move that the board approve a donation in the amount of $1,600 from the special fund to Serving with Pride for the purchase of a table at their gala and awards event. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? None opposed, so that is carried. The NRPS Special Fund request, Port Colborne Special Olympics Chapter. If I can have members Kapasavanu and member Kiokio move and second, that the board approve a donation in the amount of $450 from the special fund to the Port Colborne Special Olympics Chapter to cover the registration of 3 NRPS teams competing in the Special Olympics Bocce Ball fundraising event. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? That is carried. 9.5, the NRPS Special Fund requests the Canadian Police Memorial Ride to Remember. If I can have members Steele and members Yip move that the board approve a donation in the amount of $3,600 from the special fund to support the participation of NRPS members in the 2023 Canadian Police Memorial Ride to Remember. Members, any questions? Member Yip.
Thank you through you, Chair. I'm just, it's more a curiosity than anything else. The $3,600 is quite a significant increase from the last time. And then even over each time that we've made a donation. So I'm just curious why the increase.
I have some additional notes here. So previous donations from 2008 to 2012 were $500 each. From 2013 to 2018, there was 1,000. 2019, there was 1,500, and then there was no further donations for the next 3 years. So I would suspect that maybe when we take a look at it, it's helping for the next couple of years. But if we have some further comments, that would be great.
Through you, Chair. The reality is this is probably a truer ask for what the costs actually are as opposed to what we've asked in the past. So it's really to offset, and it's all included in the report, a number of items that are designed to assist the members who are participating in this 4-day event.
Okay, thank you.
Board members, any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? That is carried. 9.6 NRPS Special Fund request for the Fort Erie Native Friendship Center, moved by members Yip and members Kiokio, that the board approve a donation in the amount of $500 from the special fund to the Fort Erie Native Friendship Center in support of the implementation of an Indigenous crosswalk at the Welland Farmers Market. Members, any questions? Yes, member Yip.
Thank you through you, Chair. Why is this one so much lower than the last time?
Through you, Chair. This is what we were asked to provide, and so we are putting forth the request as it was put forward to us.
Thank you for the question. Members, any further questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? That is carried. Board members, do we have any other new business? No, Chief?
No other new business. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no in-camera reports. So with that, the board will adjourn the public portion of this meeting and reconvene in camera for consideration of confidential matters pursuant to section 35(4) of the Police Services Act.